What's up everyone, welcome back. There is another very frequently asked question. Will my succulent die if it tends to flower? Now over here I have an Echeveria ruffles. Yes, it looks very different now. We have a bloom stalk coming up. I'll show it to you from the side. So this is how it tends to look like. This is the crown area and this is the bloom stalk from the side. Now guys, Echeverias are not monocarpic, they are polycarpic. What is monocarpic? What is polycarpic? Monocarpic, the name itself says mono, which means once. Poly means multiple times. So we refer here as monocarpic and polycarpic succulents. Now Echeverias do not fall under the monocarpic succulents. Of course, there is one exception, which is Echeveria black prince. I don't know why that particular Echeveria tends to get a death bloom, but ideally Echeverias do not get a death bloom. These are polycarpic succulents, meaning they will flower multiple times in their lifetime. Now ideally Echeverias are said that they survive for 5 years, 7 years. Some have even said that they tend to survive for 10 years as well. So during this entire period it will bloom multiple times. So the succulent is not going to die. It's a very regular bloom stalk. If you want, you can cut it off. I usually tend to cut it off because it tends to attract mealybugs, aphids. So I tend to cut it off. I will do it once the rains stop. So Echeverias are not monocarpic. They will bloom multiple times and your mother plant is going to stay alive. Now monocarpic succulents are succulents like sempervivums. There is another variety. I will check the name and put it up on the screen because I cannot pronounce the name. It starts with an O, so I'll put it up on the screen. So sempervivums, which are also called as the hens and chicks, are monocarpic. They flower once, they will die, the mother plant will die, but you do not need to be worried because even though the mother plant tends to die, it tends to put out a lot of pups. So ideally that particular succulent, only the mother plant tends to die, but before it dies it takes a long time for a death bloom to bloom. It will take anywhere around 3 months, 4 months, or even 5 to 6 months for all the flowers on the death bloom to bloom. Before that there are going to be ample amount of pups, so that succulent is going to continue the generation, but the mother plant is going to die. But all the other succulents like Graptopetalum, sedums, crassulas, Echeverias, the natural varieties, even the hybrid varieties like Graptoverias, Sedoverias, Patchoverias, all of them are also polycarpic, meaning that they will continue to bloom, they will continue to live even after they have bloomed. As of now, these are all the succulents that are polycarpic. Even for that matter, our sedums are also polycarpic, but there is going to be a slight change. Like we all know, our Echeverias, they will start to grow, or they will put the bloom stalk from the sides. Like this is the crown area and the blooms start from the side. If the bloom starts from the center, then the plant will die, the mother plant will die. That's the reason why I said that the black prince Echeveria is one of the Echeveria that tends to very commonly have a death bloom. I'm not very sure for what reason, probably the genetics or something like that, but a death bloom will ideally start from the center and then the mother plant starts to die. But this is very common with most of our crassulas. They will put out the blooms from the center, but that doesn't mean that they are monocarpic. For example, I have some sedum burrow's tail over here that are doing fantastic. Now you can see when these tend to flower, what they do is they tend to put out flowers from the center. Like over here, as you can see, these are single strands, but when they tend to flower, they're going to put their flowers from the center. So does that mean that they are monocarpic or they are going to die? Absolutely not. Now what happens is that once it starts to flower, they have this pinkish orange flowers that show up from the center. But what happens is that once that flowering is done and the flower tends to fall off, they will not have that continuous growth from that same growing point, but they are going to turn like this. Like probably this one at some point had flowered. Now what's going to happen is once the flower tends to die, there will be growth coming out from the sides like a ginger. Like you can see over here, it's going to turn very bushy. they will start putting out growth from the sides, but they will no longer be growth from that main growing point. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. So here we have another one. So at some point you can see this is the main stem. It might have grown and flowered, and once that flower was spent, it started to put growth from the sides and it has become into a bunch like this. So this is how they start to grow. Now let's say tomorrow if this portion starts to bloom, it will start putting out growth from the sides, and this is only going to happen during winters because winter is their growing period and not summers. Sedums are summer dormant, their growing period is during winters. So that is how they start to grow, and they look like a bunch of grapes as in when they start to grow. The same thing applies with our donkey tails as well. If it starts to flower, it will then start putting out new shoots from the side, and then that is how they are going to grow. And this is with crasulas as well. They also do the same thing, because I've seen my falcata also had put out the growth from the center, and then that portion stopped the growth, but it started generating pups from the side. So in a similar fashion, but in an Echeveria or in a sempervivum, when the mother plant dies over here, the mother plant is not going to die, but in an sempervivum, the mother plant is going to die, but it is going to have ample amount of pups in the side. So that is how they tend to grow. That's it for today, guys. I hope that you liked this video. If you did, please hit the like button, and if you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing to it. Until then, take care, stay safe, and keep planting.